Hey folks, welcome to Introduction to Python, which is going to be the programming language that we're going to cover in this series, at least primarily because I love Python. I've been programming since I was 6 years old, but I didn't really start to love programming until about 5 years ago when I got hooked on Python. It is the smoothest language to write in. Like in comparison to all the other languages out there, you think a thing, you write a thing, the thing works. All the other languages have you mashing things together in weird semicolons all over the place. It's a mess, but Python is just clean writing and it's easy. So that it's actually quite powerful too. Like a lot of people suggest that you start with languages like JavaScript and Visual Basic at one point. But those are very limited. Like you can only do so much with them before you outgrow them. Python is one of these languages that's so powerful that you could just keep on using it forever. You may never need another programming language. And if you do ever need another programming language, it's going to give you a good basis to start off with to understand computing and programming and all this other things. So to get started with this, you're going to need to understand some of those basic programming concepts. And that's what this video is going to cover. You do not have to memorize anything. All right. I want to emphasize this again. This is not a memorization thing. This is just me introducing you to some concepts, and you'll see these concepts used throughout the rest of these videos. And through repetition, that's how you're going to actually learn any of this stuff. Like, so please don't stress over, oh, I'm not remembering this or whatever. It's just to introduce you to these concepts, okay? Let's get started. So before you get started, you're going to actually need Python, and that's different for every single operating system that is out there, unfortunately. For Mac, you have to do something with Homebrew. I'm not entirely clear on it. I've done it once many years ago, but I don't remember exactly the process. And on Linux, depending on which repo you have, you're going to have to figure it out. Fortunately, it should be easy to figure out if you just go to python.org and go through the downloads for the various operating systems. But fortunately, most of you are going to be on Windows, and Windows is the easiest place to install Python because the Microsoft Store has it right here. You just get it and it gets you the latest version of Python and it keeps it up to date for you. This is the easiest it's ever been to install Python on any operating system. So since most of you are on Windows, you're lucky. Just go here and click this and you're done. Like that's step one done. Okay, now we got to move on to step two. And step two is using an editor. Now, you can use anything, like literally anything. The first 6 months I was programming, I was on a shell, just using the Nano editor on this server in France of all places, and like I just wrote a Python thing in Nano on a server on the other side of the world, right? Like that's how I learned to write. You shouldn't learn to write like that. There are much better ways to write code now. A lot of people like things like Sublime Text, and I think that those are fine if you're used to that, but I wouldn't recommend that for people that are beginning because they don't have the same level of code completion that a full-blown editor like PyCharm uses. Now, I don't want to be like pushing any one thing. All right. Like there's also other great options. Okay. There's just no wrong answer to this, whatever you're comfortable with. Microsoft has a VS Code, which is totally free and works on every operating system. I just happen to like PyCharm, and this is once again works on every operating system. There is a free version. Okay. And it's a very capable free version. So when you go to PyCharm, whatever the hell the PyCharm address is, don't be afraid when you look at like the buying. It's gonna tell you something insane. Like that's not how much I'm paying for this thing. I'm definitely not paying that. All right, this is for organizations. Over here we got for individuals. This is how much I am paying. But you can pay even less than that because you don't actually need the pro features. And there's a community version that you can just download, and it's totally free and open source. So if you're going to be doing web stuff like I do, then you're going to need the pro version and you're going to have to pay them $90. But for all the stuff that we're going to start off with, you can totally get away with using the free community version. All right. So this is whatever you want to use to edit with, go ahead and edit with it. I'm going to be using PyCharm for this. Primarily that's just what I'm used to. But additionally, it's got a lot of customization and features that I really like. Like if you notice over here, there's this little bar here. And as I'm typing things in, that bar is getting excited. And now there's sparks flying off this. Like this is one of the many little customizations that you can do to amuse yourself. Like, I'm not doing that for the video. I keep that on for my own amusement. And you can customize this however you want. That's a plugin. This PyCharm does not do that by default. So the first thing to learn about in programming is variables. And you might know variables from algebra. In fact, I want to make a point here that you do not need to know a lot of math. Like, I don't even know what the hell trigonometry is, but as long as you understand basic algebra, you're good. So like you've probably seen things like 5 plus x equals 13, and solve for x, that's obviously 8. When the way that we would program that would be to say x equals 8, or we could do like x equals 13 minus 5 or whatever. However we're doing it, we're assigning x as a variable. And we can do this with numbers, and this creates what's called an integer variable. If we divide x by 2, this is going to create a float, which is anything with a decimal point and numbers after that. So like if we divide this by something that's uneven, it's going to give us a floating point. 2.6666. And you see that me just typing shit in here is actual code. Like, this is how Python works. Like, you just type things and it works. So let's get rid of all this though. There's a lot of different types of variables. So it's not important to remember the types that there are, but you need to keep track of what they are. So for instance, let's say that y I'm going to assign as a string variable here that just says whatever. And it's important to know that that's a string variable. And I should know that because I just did it. But you keep this in mind, because when you try to do something like, say, I have x plus y plus z. You see it's giving me an error here. And this is one of the reasons it's nice to use a full-on editor, is it'll let you know when you're making a mistake like this. And it's saying that I'm using an int here instead of a string, and it's expecting a string. And if I run it, I get an exception here. And despite this being red text here, you should never be afraid of exceptions. Exceptions are always informative and helpful and let you know exactly how you're fucking up. And in this case, I'm fucking up because it's expecting a string because I'm trying to concatenate, and it can't do that with an integer. So we can change this by doing that. And now my x is being treated as a string like my y is. So this is just an example. Like, you should actually never type things like this, but that's one of the many reasons that you need to keep track of what your variables are. So a better way of doing all of this would be to say, I have, and then blank blanks, and then we format this, and you see all variables in Python are also objects, and objects means that they have all kinds of other things attached to them, including all these methods. So this string, I just type period and I get all of these things that are built into this. These are functions, or called methods. They're methods of this string. Like, I didn't have to add this find or format or anything like that. It's just built into that type of string. And the same with integers. So like x has all of these other things that they're built into that type. So this string right here, if I type period, I get format as the top option because I use that. And now it's asking me for some arguments. And in this case, I can just give it x and y, and this will work. I have 8 whatevers, and you see it's actually prettier than my concatenation, because in my concatenation I didn't add a space, and you gotta always remember to add pluses all over the place. So I didn't do that here, and that's why the 8 whatevers is right next to each other. But when I was typing it out in this, I could just put in a space because that's me typing. It makes sense. Now, I'm showing you this format style because you're probably going to encounter code that uses it. It's like a very common way of writing strings in Python. But because you're learning this now, you get to skip all this and do something that's even better. You get to use F strings, and F strings are the easiest thing in the world to work with because you just type F and then you do quotes. You can do single or double quotes. You see I'm using single quotes here, I'm using double quotes here, and single quotes. You can mix and match all over, it doesn't matter, okay? But I try to use double quotes when I'm doing F strings because it makes things easier. When I say like let's, like, or whatever, if you're doing single quotes and you type let's, you see how it breaks? I'd have to do a backslash here to cut out of that. But if I'm doing double quotes, I don't have to do that. See, it doesn't break out of it. So anyhow, I have, and here, when I do the brackets, you see how this is white instead of yellow? This means we can just plug our variables right in here. So I have blank y's, I have x, y's, F strings are awesome. So we got the same result in each manner, but by doing it this way, it's just way easier to work with. So that's what we're going to be using for this series. And honestly, like, you should only ever have to use F strings. So don't worry about too much about these. I wanted to show you the other methods in case you encounter them. So let's put what we've learned here to good use. And as I've said, like, you don't really need to understand math. You just need to understand formulas, and you don't even have to remember the formulas. You can look up the formulas. Like if you're wondering how to calculate the radians of a circle or whatever, like, you look up, how do I do that? And Google will tell you, and then you plug in whatever Google tells you to hear. But let's start working with some more interesting data types than just these strings and integers. So let's assign b equals input, and now it's going to create a little prompt here, and we can ask what are we asking the user? What month were you born? And I'm doing this wrong to show you something here. When I type, you see how what I'm typing is right next to that question mark? You gotta watch out for that. You gotta add a little space there. And now your input gives you a little space. All right, so I say 8. And I should have been printing out that so you could see what happens. We got 8. Well, if you were to ask me the question, what month were you born? And I said 8, you would know that I meant August. And the computer doesn't know that, though. The computer just says 8. Because the computer is as dumb as a rock. It is literally just a hunk of rock. And programming is teaching a rock new tricks. That's all this is, okay? So how do we tell the computer that 8 means August? Well, fortunately, Python is full of things that help you tell the computer what things are. So one of those is in the standard library, we have DateTime. So I just import DateTime. And I can say that birthday equals DateTime. And this is another advantage to having an editor. I've got code completion, so I see all of the various subclasses of this package here. So is a DateTime. I'm going to do string p time, and you see that it's giving me this helpful hint that, okay, well, what string are you trying to convert into a date? And in this case, the string that I'm using is b, and the format of that. Shit, is it M? Yeah, it's underscore. If you're ever wondering about date formatting, like, you don't even have to remember this. You just need to remember how to spell strftime.org, and this will tell you how to do all the formatting you ever need to do. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how do I change the month is lowercase m. So let's see what we get here. What month were you born? I'd say 8. And now it thinks that I was born in August of 1900. And it thinks this is the first at midnight. So we didn't tell it all the other stuff, but we did tell it August. It learned August. In fact, we could do something like, say, string from time. And in this case, we want it to do B. And now it knows that's August. Now, we could move in many directions from here. I think let's build up a full birth date here. We'll ask. I want to point out though that we have taught the computer that 8 means August. And that's the really important salient point here, that with this whole bit here, we've taken the number 8 and we've turned it into something the computer understands as August. And it can do all of the date related stuff to that, which we're going to do in a second here. But first, let's clean this up a little bit and build this out into like a full birth date. So what is your birthday? And let's give the user a hint saying month, year. And now we need to make sure that we change our formatting to accommodate that. So we do this, and we'll print our birthday again just to see what that looks like. So now if I do 8/1979, we're getting there. We didn't get a date, and we didn't get a time, so we've got the month and the year as we've told it. And now we can do things like calculate the age. So like this birthday object is a DateTime object, and that's this specific number, and it's calculating that in like seconds. Like it's a whole bunch of seconds stacked up on top of each other equals that date in time. So we can do comparisons on that. So now equals DateTime UTC now. And if now is greater than birthday, then time is accruing. Oh, good. I spelled that correctly. That's another advantage to having an editor. This one spell checks me. So the now, like right this second, has a lot more seconds in it than my birthday. So time is accruing. So we can do all kinds of different types of math on that, but the easiest one here is we're just going to figure out my age is birthday, or now minus birthday, and we'll print that out. I'll make this pretty for you guys to see what I'm talking about here. This age thing is now a time delta object, and that has a whole bunch of different things built into that. And one of those things that I want to use is days, and we'll multiply that by 360, or days divided by 365, and we'll round that, and it should tell you my age. Yay! So we can do other things with these. Like, these are not just simple strings and integers anymore. These are full complex objects with all this great stuff built into them. We can do all of this math stuff with these complex objects. A good age-related formula that a lot of people know is when you're calculating whether or not a relationship is creepy or not, you take the age of the oldest member and divide that by 2 plus, and you add 7 years. And if that's greater than the age of the youngest member of the relationship, then that's pretty fucking creepy. So let's do that as a program. So we're going to need a second birthday here. And I'm going to move now. So we're going to be using that in more things. We're going to move that up to the top here. And so this is the age of older. Let's just do age 1. Okay. And now B equals input. What is the birthday of the younger partner? And this is going to be birthday 2 equals DateTime string P time. I should probably not call this B. Let's call it C. All right, so now we have the birthday in an object that the computer understands. We're going to make this age 2 equals now minus birthday 2. Excuse me. So we need to figure out if birthday age 1 here is greater than birthday 2. Well, here, I'll just type it out. So if age 1 divided by 2 plus, and now we gotta tell it's 7 years. So let's make a time delta. Days equals 365. So let me explain what I'm doing right here. A time delta is what the ages are. Like a delta just means the difference in times. So we're making a new time delta object that is right now 1 year, and I can multiply that by 7, and now that's a time delta of 7 years that I'm adding to age divided by 2. In fact, let's print this out and you can see what this actually looks like. I'm just typing in whatever here. It doesn't matter. Okay, so it's in days, but you understand what I'm saying. Like this is less than the total number of days that I actually am. So if this whole thing, let's add this as a variable unto itself. Creep check equals. All right. So if the age of the second partner is greater than the creep check, get freaky. Else, that's creepy. Oh, goddamn, I did it. That's creepy. So, the first date that comes to mind that I know is going to be creepy, or here, let me do one that's not creepy. So, 2000, or whoops, 1980. Like, okay, that get freaky. Let's do a creepy one now. 1979, and let's say 04, 1997. That's creepy. Now, when you're programming things like this, you can do these really complex operations on these objects without like having to know what the objects are. Like I don't know what age 1 actually is. Like that's the big takeaway from here. Okay. In math, they're teaching you about how to know what all these numbers are in your equations. And that's just not important. I don't care how many days, like remember we saw that age was 9,000 or something days. That doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't mean anything to my program. It's just part of the full equation here. And that's the beauty of all these different types of variables. We can do great things with them without actually knowing what's inside of them. We just have to stuff all the bits in it and explain it to the computer what those mean, and the computer does the math for us. All right, I should probably stop here and just not overload you with more stuff. Let's just go over a few of the basic ideas you need to take away from this. Variables or whatever the hell you want to assign, they can be any number of things, but you should probably keep track of what type of thing they are. And Python is super easy because just typing out all this stuff actually created a functioning program, and it didn't look crazy and weird like a lot of programming tends to be portrayed in movies and stuff like that. So in the next video, we're going to actually get into some real programming and get into doing some exciting stuff with grabbing files from the internet and doing stuff with that. So until then, take it easy, folks.